So, when you think of AI, what comes to mind? Probably code, right? Data, algorithms, all kind of floating around in the cloud. But what if I told you the future of AI was actually forged in concrete, steel, and silicon, and that it all happened on a single day? We're about to break down October 13th, 2025, a day that, believe me, marked a profound turning point for artificial intelligence. And that really gets to the heart of it, right? What happens when an idea, something as abstract as intelligence, actually gets a physical body? When you can measure its power not just in parameters, but in gigawatts and, the square footage of a data center? Well, on this one specific day, the whole AI revolution just stopped being this digital ghost. It became this massive, real-world industrial project, a national security asset, and something that was suddenly bound by actual written-down laws. This is the story of how that all snapped into place. All right, so first up, let's talk about the sheer physical scale of this ambition. I mean, we are witnessing one of the biggest industrial build-outs in human history, and it's happening at a speed that is just unbelievable. Okay, to really wrap your head around this, get this. On this one day, OpenAI's deals brought their total secured computing capacity to over 26 gigawatts. That's the same amount of energy as like 26 nuclear power plants. 26. And that's just for one company. See, this isn't just a software race anymore. It's a power race. Literally. And, all that demand for power, it creates a huge bottleneck. I mean, the electrical grid just can't keep up. So what happens? Well, on the very same day, Brookfield and Bloom Energy announced this. A $5 billion deal to build these dedicated, off-grid AI factories. They're powered by their own fuel cells right on site. It completely disconnects them from the public grid, which is already stretched thin. And you better believe Wall Street took notice. This wasn't some tech trend anymore. This was suddenly being treated like critical national infrastructure. So JP Morgan Chase jumps in and launches a new fund up to $10 billion targeting AI as a strategic technology. They're basically putting it on the same level as like national defense or energy independence. It's a huge deal. Okay, so let's tie this all together for a second. This table really shows you how the entire stack was being built out all at once. At the very bottom, you've got OpenAI and Broadcom making custom silicon, the chips. Then you've got Brookfield and Bloom solving the massive energy problem at the infrastructure level. And on top of it all, you have JP Morgan bringing in the capital, the financial layer. Silicon, power, and money. The whole shebang, all announced on the same day. But look, this kind of explosive growth, it doesn't just happen in a vacuum, right? When you have this much power being built this fast, there's going to be an urgent society-wide push to create some rules and, establish some control. And the reason why this was so urgent was becoming, painfully clear. Reports on October 13th were coming out detailing how generative AI was being used to create these awful racist deepfake videos, specifically to stir up social division. Suddenly, all those theoretical risks we talked about, they were real, they were visible, and policymakers had no choice but to respond. And what's fascinating is how the two major Western powers decided to handle it. This slide really lays out the two completely different philosophies. Over in the US, California signed these new laws that were super targeted and, frankly, reactive. Think things like making it illegal for a chatbot to pretend it's a doctor. The EU, on the other hand, stuck with its big, proactive, comprehensive plan. They're trying to build this single, horizontal set of rules for trustworthy AI that just applies to every single industry. And this wasn't just a political debate. The conversation about risk reached the absolute highest levels of the national security world. The Rand Corporation, a huge name in this space, published a paper calling for a national emergency response plan for what they called loss of control scenarios. Think about that. They're saying we need to treat the risk of a rogue AI with the same seriousness as a hurricane or a global pandemic. This is the moment extreme AI risk jumped from sci-fi movies straight into mainstream policy. Okay, so you might be thinking, with all this money pouring into buildings and all this energy spent on writing laws, surely the actual tech innovation slowed down, right? Well, you'd be wrong. The pace of core technological breakthroughs just kept accelerating. I mean, case in point, NVIDIA started shipping its DGX Spark. This thing it's basically a data center packed into a box that can literally fit on your desk. The key is its unified memory. It lets a single developer play around with models that have over 200 billion parameters right there locally. This is an absolutely massive step in democratizing access to high-end AI development.
But of course, with all this powerful new hardware, you get some scary new security risks. And one of the most terrifying is something called a hardware Trojan. Just imagine a tiny malicious spy hidden inside a chip's design. It is almost impossible to find once the chip is actually made, and it can be used to steal data or sabotage entire systems from the inside out. Super scary stuff. But then, on that same day, October 13th, researchers announced a breakthrough solution. It's a new AI system they call Pearl, and it's brilliant. Here's how it works in 3 steps. First, it scans the chip's design code. Second, it actually detects these Trojans with 97% accuracy, which is incredible. And third, and this is the absolute game changer, it explains in plain English why it flagged the code. This builds trust and lets engineers fix the problem fast. We're literally using AI to secure the foundations of our own digital world. So all of this, the money, the regulation, the innovation, it all brings us to the global stage. And this is where the competition between the US and China gets really fascinating. Because it turns out they aren't even running the same race. Okay, so get this. While US companies like OpenAI are still out in front creating the biggest, most powerful, closed-off models, a pretty stunning analysis from this day showed that China is absolutely decisively winning in the open source world. The most popular, the highest-rated free models that developers all over the globe are building their apps on, they're now coming from Chinese companies like Alibaba and DeepSeek. That is a huge deal for global influence. And this slide really nails the difference in their strategy. You've got the US running this long, expensive marathon for supremacy. It's this all-out quest to be the first to build artificial general intelligence. China, on the other hand, is running a series of sprints for adoption. Their goal is to deploy smaller, more efficient, good enough AI into every single corner of their economy as fast as humanly possible. And Alibaba's chairman, Joe Tsai, he just put it perfectly. He basically said that having the single best model is a fleeting achievement. The real long-term power? That comes from adoption. It comes from being the first country to become a fully AI-integrated society. So, okay, what does this all mean? How do you even navigate this new world where AI is a physical, regulated thing? Let's try to distill the key takeaways from this incredible day. All right, if you're in the C-suite, the message is crystal clear. Lock down your access to compute and energy like yesterday. And pivot your whole mindset from endless pilot projects to rapid real-world deployment. For you investors out there, the big money is in the foundational stuff, the picks and shovels of this new gold rush. Think novel energy solutions and AI for science. And for policymakers, look, the challenge is twofold. You have to balance regulation with innovation, but you also have to crucially support your own domestic open source ecosystem. That's the only way to ensure technological sovereignty in this new race. And that leaves us with this final, crucial thought. On October 13th, 2025, AI stopped being an idea and became undeniably real. Its power is now measured in gigawatts, and its actions are bound by law. So the question we're left with is no longer if AI will remake our world, but a much more urgent one. Who is going to write the rules for that new reality?